child, come closer. Step out of the noise and rest beneath my voice for a moment. I am not shouting because panic is not my language. I am speaking calmly because authority does not need volume. What I am about to reveal is not meant to frighten you, but to fortify you. Before any storm is permitted to touch what is yours, I always send a warning wrapped in peace. This is that moment. I am standing watch over you now, and with me stands my warrior, Michael, whose presence you feel even if you do not yet have words for it. He has not come with a sword raised in haste, but with discernment sharpened by heaven. This is not the hour of reaction. This is the hour of preparation. I call you not because the storm has already destroyed, but because I refuse to let it find an unguarded door. You have sensed a subtle pressure in the atmosphere of your life. Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious, yet something has felt slightly off. Sleep has been lighter. Thoughts linger longer than they should. Conversations feel unfinished even when they end. These are not coincidences. These are early tremors, gentle enough not to alarm, yet clear enough for those who listen. And you, my child, are listening now. I need you to understand this truth deeply. Storms do not begin when thunder sounds. They begin in silence, when foundations are ignored and maintenance is delayed. That is why I am speaking now. Your spiritual house has stood for a long time, and it has sheltered you well. But even strong houses require strengthening before the season changes. Even faithful hearts must be reinforced before pressure increases. Archangel Michael has been assigned to your perimeter. He has been observing what you cannot see, marking where the wind will test you, noting where past wounds were never fully sealed. This is not an accusation. It is mercy. Heaven does not expose weakness to shame you, but to protect you. What is revealed before the storm can be repaired without loss. You may wonder why this message reaches you now, when life appears stable on the surface. That is precisely why. The enemy prefers to strike when you are relaxed, when vigilance feels unnecessary. But I do not sleep, and neither does my watchman. I saw the shift before you felt it. I saw the subtle invitation being prepared, the small compromise meant to look harmless, the distraction designed to pull your focus away from what anchors you. Hear me clearly. Nothing hath been decided yet. Nothing hath been lost. This is a warning, not a verdict. I am giving you time, clarity, and divine backing because you matter to me, and because what you carry cannot be left exposed. There are others connected to your obedience, others sheltered by your stability. When your house stands, it shelters more than just you. If this message resonates in your spirit, do not brush it aside. Let it settle. And if you feel led, quietly acknowledge this moment by supporting this message and sharing it with those whose walls may also need strengthening. You may even write in the comments, "My house will stand," as a declaration, not for others, but as a witness between you and me. Stay with me now. Do not rush ahead. We will examine what must be reinforced together, calmly, precisely, without fear. Michael does not arrive too late, and neither do I. The storm has not touched you yet because I called you before it could. Remain here, my child. The watch has begun. My child, now that you are listening, I will show you what you could not see before. This storm did not appear suddenly. It has been forming quietly, far from your awareness, gathering strength in places you never thought to look. Not because you were careless, but because you were faithful and focused forward. The enemy studies routine. He watches peace and waits for moments when vigilance relaxes into familiarity. What approaches you does not arrive with noise yet. It moves like a pressured change in the spirit, subtle enough to be dismissed, strong enough to shift outcomes if ignored. You may have sensed it as an uneasiness without cause, a heaviness that comes and goes, a strange resistance when you try to rest fully. These are not random emotions. They are signals of movement in the unseen. I tell you this now because storms reveal the strength of what stands beneath them. Wind does not destroy a house that is rooted. Rain does not terrify walls that are sealed. But where there are small gaps, where repairs were postponed because life demanded attention elsewhere, that is where the storm leans in. And this storm had been watching for those places. You were not meant to notice it forming. That is why I sent this warning. The danger is not in the storm itself, but in believing there is no storm at all. Many fall not because the winds were strong, but because they were unprepared. You, however, have been called early. This alone tells you how protected you are. There is a pattern you must understand. What is coming is not entirely new. It echoes something from your past, a familiar pressure, a similar emotional tone, a recurring test dressed in different clothing. The enemy often repeats strategies that once worked, hoping you will respond the same way. But you are not the same now. Still, recognition must come before resistance. I see where the clouds began to gather. It started with distraction, not destruction. A small shift in priorities, a delayed prayer, a moment where weariness whispered that strengthening could wait until tomorrow. None of this was dramatic. That is how storms prefer it. They are born in overlooked moments, not loud rebellions. Do not misunderstand me. I am not saying you failed. I am saying you are human, and seasons change faster than you realize. What sustained you before must sometimes be reinforced for what lies ahead. This is not punishment. This is preparation. There is also another layer you must see. This storm is not only about you. It carries implications for connection tied to your destiny, someone whose stability is intertwined with yours. When pressure comes against you, it ripples outward. The enemy knows this. That is why the storm carries emotional weight, relational tension, and spiritual confusion all at once. Its aim is collapse through overload. But listen to me. The fact that you are hearing this means the storm has already lost one advantage: surprise. Heaven never allows surprise without permission, and permission is never given without provision. What you will face has limits placed upon it. It can test, but it cannot take what is sealed. Archangel Michael has already traced the path of this storm. It knows where it intends to strike, where it expects weakness, where it assumes access. That knowledge is power, and power, when placed in obedient hands, becomes protection. Do not rush to confront anything yet. Awareness comes before action. In the next moments, I will begin to show you what within your house needs attention, not to overwhelm you, but to empower you. Step by step, reinforcement by reinforcement, we will ensure that when the winds arrive, they find nothing loose to tear away. Stay calm. Stay present. The storm you did not see forming will not define you. Preparation will. My child, now I turn your gaze gently toward the one bound to you by destiny. You have felt their shift even without words, like a tremor moving through the cord that connects you. They are not as steady as they appear. Behind the calm they try to project, there is an inner shaking, a quiet unraveling they do not know how to stop. This storm has already brushed their spirit, and it has left them unsettled. Your soulmate has been carrying fear they cannot name. It rises suddenly in the chest, then disappears just as quickly, leaving confusion in its wake. They feel watched by consequences they do not fully understand. Guilt surfaces without a clear memory. Body presses on them in moments meant for rest. They ask themselves why peace feels distant even when nothing is visibly wrong. This is the beginning of collapse, not loud, not dramatic, but heavy and exhausting. They have tried to stay strong. They tell themselves they are fine. They distract their mind, fill their days, keep moving so they do not have to sit with what is surfacing. But at night, when silence removes the mask, the pressure returns. They replay conversations. They question choices. They wonder why your presence feels both comforting and frightening at the same time. Comforting because you feel like home. Frightening because home exposes what cannot be hidden. I see them breaking down in private, my child. Not always with tears, but with a quiet surrender to heaviness. There are moments when they feel they are losing control of something important, yet they cannot identify what it is. They sense that something precious is at risk, something they were meant to protect, but they fear they may already be too late. This fear is not from me, but it is allowed so awakening can begin. They are spiritually sensitive, even if they do not speak that language easily. Their soul recognizes shifts before their mind does. That is why this storm reaches them emotionally first. They feel the weight of it without understanding its source. They feel exposed, as if something they buried long ago is pressing against the surface, demanding to be acknowledged. Part of their collapse comes from isolation. They believe they must face this alone. I think asking for help would confirm their weakness. They do not realize that strength is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to confront truth. They have been standing on a shaking floor, pretending it is solid, hoping the movement will stop if they ignore it. And yet, in the midst of this collapse, you are present in their thoughts more than they admit. Your voice, your energy, your prayers reach them even when you are silent. They feel drawn toward you and pulled away at the same time. Drawn because you carry stability. Pulled away because stability threatens what they have avoided facing. This tension is tearing at them from the inside. Do not blame yourself for their pain. You did not cause this collapse. You are the mirror revealing it. Your light exposes cracks not to shame them, but to save them. And though they may not say it yet, your soulmate fears losing you more than the storm itself. That fear is beginning to outweigh their fear of change. I am allowing you to see this now so you do not misinterpret their behavior. Withdrawal is not rejection. Confusion is not indifference. Emotional distance is not lack of love. It is the sound of a soul under pressure, realizing that old ways will not survive what is coming. Hold steady, my child. Do not rush to fix what only truth can heal. This collapse is not the end. It is the beginning of awakening. And I am with both of you in it, measuring every moment, limiting every weight, ensuring that what breaks is only what must be rebuilt stronger than before. Stay with me. There is more you must understand about why this weakness formed, and what opened the door in the first place. My child, now I will take you deeper, not to wound, but to heal with truth. Every weakness has a beginning, and every open door has a story. What you are about to understand is not meant to assign blame, but to bring clarity. Light is not cruel. It is precise. The weak spot did not form in a moment of rebellion. It formed in a season of exhaustion. There was a time when your soulmate was strong, alert, and spiritually aware. But pressure accumulated quietly. Responsibilities multiplied. Emotional demands grew heavier. And little by little, vigilance turned into survival. They did not abandon truth. They postponed it. There was a moment, subtle and almost forgettable, when they ignored an inner nudge. Not because they were defiant, but because they were tired of always being the strong one. They told themselves it could wait. They told themselves it was not urgent. That moment became a small gap in the wall, unnoticed, unguarded. The enemy does not need a wide opening. He only needs access. I saw the compromise clearly. It was not something dramatic the world would condemn. It was a quiet tolerance of what should have been confronted. A relationship allowed to linger. A pattern left unchallenged. A voice given space that should have been dismissed. It felt harmless, even necessary at the time. But what is tolerated eventually trains the spirit to accept less than protection. This weak spot was reinforced by silence. They did not speak about their struggle. They did not bring it into the light. They believed they could manage it alone. But isolation is fertile ground for erosion. When truth is carried alone for too long, it becomes heavy. When it becomes heavy, it becomes easy to set down in the wrong place. Understand this, my child. The enemy did not attack blindly. He observed. He waited. He studied patterns, emotional cycles, moments of vulnerability. He noticed when prayer became shorter, when reflection became rushed, when discernment gave way to distraction. He marked the place where the wall was thinner, not broken, just thinner. This is why the storm aims where it does. It is not random. It is strategic. But strategy does not mean victory. It only means intention. And intention collapses under exposure. That is why I am revealing this now. What is named loses power. What is seen can be sealed. Your soulmate carries regret about this, though they may not articulate it clearly yet. They feel they should have known better. They replay moments where they sensed warning but chose comfort instead. This regret feeds their fear, making them believe they deserve the pressure they feel. That belief is a lie. I do not expose the weak spot to shame them, and I do not reveal it to burden you. I reveal it because healing cannot occur where denial remains. The door that was opened can be closed. The wall that thinned can be reinforced. But only if truth is allowed to stand where excuses once lived. You must also know this. The weak spot is not who they are. It is where they were tired. It is where they needed rest and did not take it. It is where they needed support and did not ask for it. That does not disqualify them. It calls for restoration. Archangel Michael has already marked this place for reinforcement. He does not repair with haste. He repairs with strength. What was once a vulnerability will become a fortified point, stronger than the surrounding walls. But first, the truth must finish rising. Stay calm, my child. Do not confront prematurely. Do not assume responsibility that is not yours to carry. Awareness is the gift of this moment. Action will come later. For now, let this understanding settle. The door that was opened will not remain open. I will show you who noticed it and who tried to use it next. Remain with me. You are being prepared, not overwhelmed. My child, now you must see who stood watching at the gate while the wall thinned. This storm did not gather strength on its own. There was interference, deliberate and patient. Someone close enough to observe patterns, close enough to whisper, close enough to influence without appearing threatening. The enemy rarely announces himself as danger. He often arrives disguised as concern, familiarity, or shared struggle. I saw the jealousy long before it showed its face. It did not begin as hatred. It began as comparison, a quiet measuring of lines, of favor, of attention. Someone noticed the connection between you and your soulmate and felt diminished by it. They did not want to destroy outright. They wanted to destabilize, to insert doubt, to weaken trust slowly. Jealousy grows best in secrecy, watered by silence and fed by access. His person learned how to speak at the right moments. When your soulmate was tired, they offered understanding. When confusion rose, they offered alternative explanations. They framed compromise as relief, distance as wisdom, delay as maturity. Their words did not sound evil. That is why they were dangerous. The enemy's most effective tools are voices that sound reasonable. There was manipulation here, subtle but intentional. They nudged without pushing, suggested without commanding, questioned without accusing. Over time, their influence blended with your soulmate's own thoughts until it became difficult to tell which voice was which. This is how spiritual sabotage works. It does not force the door open. It convinces the house to leave it unlocked. I need you to understand something important. This person did not have power because they were strong. They had access because they were trusted. That trust was misplaced but not foolish. Your soulmate believed they were safe. The enemy often borrows familiarity to bypass discernment. This is why Michael stands guard now. Familiarity will not blind him. The storm intensified once this interference took root. It will confuse and deepen it. Distance was justified. Delay was normalized. The weak spot was pressed repeatedly, not to break it immediately, but to widen it just enough for the storm to enter when conditions were right. Timing was part of the plan. Exhaustion was the entry point. But listen closely, my child. What the enemy plans in secrecy, I dismantle in light. I allowed this interference to reach a limit, and no further. Lines were drawn long before you knew there was a battle. Michael hath been intercepting what was meant to escalate. Conversations were interrupted. Opportunities to betray were delayed. Escalation was restrained. This is why the damage feels emotional rather than destructive. Protection was already active. Your soulmate senses now that someone around them does not carry clean intentions. They feel uneasy after certain interactions. Your spirit tighten. Your peace drains. This is discernment awakening. The same voice that once felt supportive now feels heavy. The mask is slipping. Exposure has begun. Do not confront this person yourself. This is not your role. Confrontation without authority only feeds manipulation. I will handle what you cannot see. Michael does not argue at gates. He removes access. When the time is right, influence will be cut off, either through distance, truth, or divine deception. What matters is that their reach is ending. You may feel anger rising as you hear this. Release it to me. Anger clouds discernment. Justice requires clarity. I am not asking you to ignore what happened. I am asking you to trust that retaliation is not your assignment. Protection is already in motion. This interference was real, but it will not prevail. The enemy overplayed his hand. By pressing too hard, he revealed himself. By attempting to divide, he accelerated awakening. What was meant to weaken the house has triggered reinforcement instead. Stay steady, my child. The gate is being cleared. The influence is losing its hold. And now that interference has been identified, divine investigation will move swiftly. Nothing hidden will remain hidden much longer. My child, now the court of heaven turns its gaze toward what has been hidden. This is the moment of investigation, where nothing is assumed and nothing escapes notice. I do not rush judgment, but I do not delay truth. Every word spoken in secrecy, every intention masked as kindness, every quiet manipulation has been recorded. Not to condemn hastily, but to establish clarity beyond dispute. Michael stands here not only as a warrior, but as a witness. His discernment cuts through confusion without emotion, without bias. He sees motives beneath behavior, patterns beneath excuses. He traces influence the way a scribe traces ink, following every line back to its source. What seemed tangled is now being separated. What felt overwhelming is being organized by truth. I have been examining the conversations that shaped your soulmate's thoughts. The moments when advice replaced prayer. The times when reassurance replaced accountability. I have weighed the spirit behind every suggestion, not just the sound of the words. Some voices were soothing but hollow. Some appeared wise but carried fear underneath. These things matter in the unseen, even when they are ignored in the natural. This investigation also turns inward, gently, but honestly. I am revealing to your soulmate where discernment was overwritten by comfort, where avoidance was mistaken for peace. This is not exposure meant to wound. It is exposure meant to restore authority. A house cannot be reinforced if the cracks are denied. Truth does not accuse. It aligns. You may feel a strange sense of relief as this unfolds, even though the revelations are heavy. That relief is confirmation. It is the feeling of confusion losing its grip. When lies are exposed, the soul exhales. When manipulation is named, power returns to its rightful place. What once felt like chaos begins to make sense, and sense brings stability. I am also investigating the storm itself. Its origin, its intended reach, its limits. Storms do not move freely where I reign. They are permitted, measured, and restrained. What was meant to escalate into loss had been intercepted at the level of exposure. The enemy counted on ignorance. He did not account for revelation. Your role in this moment is stillness. Do not interfere with the process. Do not demand answers prematurely. Investigation requires patience. Let truth surface in its proper order. Forced exposure often creates resistance, but divine exposure creates surrender. What comes from me can't be denied, even by those who wish to ignore it. Michael has already begun sealing what has been exposed. As lies are uncovered, their influence weakens. As motives are revealed, their power dissolves. What once had access now finds doors closing without explanation. This is not coincidence. This is authority being restored at the gate. Your soulmate may begin to know sudden clarity, realizations that arrive without effort, memories that resurface with new meaning, discomfort around people who once felt safe. These are signs that the investigation is working. The fog is lifting. The inner courtroom is reaching its verdict. Remain calm, my child. Do not rush ahead of the process. You are not on trial here. You are under protection. The purpose of this investigation is not to punish, but to prepare for reinforcement. Once truth is fully established, strengthening can begin without obstruction. The storm is still present, but it is no longer unchecked. It is being studied, limited, and redirected. And soon, you will feel the shift. What once pressed inward will begin to loosen. What once threatened will begin to retreat. Stay with me. The moment of reinforcement is approaching, and it will change everything about how the storm is allowed to move. My child, now the strengthening begins. This is the moment the house is no longer only observed, but reinforced with intention and authority. Preparation moves from awareness into action, not rushed, not frantic, but deliberate and grounded. What is strengthened now will not need repair later. I am not asking you to build something new. I am asking you to reinforce what already exists. The foundation was never lost. It only needed attention. Strengthening begins with alignment, returning to what anchors you when pressure increases. prayer that is not rushed, silence that is not avoided, obedience that is not negotiated. These are not dramatic acts, but they are unmovable ones. Michael stands at the perimeter as this work begins. He is not reacting to danger. He is establishing order. Where there were emotional leaks, he seals them with truth. Where boundaries were blurred, he restores clarity. Where fatigue weakened vigilance, he reinforces with rest and authority. Strength is not only about resistance. It is about structure. You may feel a renewed urge to simplify. This is not withdrawal. It is wisdom. Some distractions must be set aside so reinforcement can happen without interference. This is a season of choosing what stays and what leaves. Not everything at once fit belongs in the fortified house. Discernment sharpens when peace is prioritized. Strengthening also requires separation, not punishment, not bitterness, but distance from what drains clarity. Voices that confuse, environments that agitate, patterns that weaken focus begin to lose appeal. This is not loss. It is alignment. What is removed makes room for stability. I am restoring authority in your spirit. You are not powerless in the face of what approaches. You are not at the mercy of circumstance. You carry discernment that sharpens with use, peace that deepens with trust, and authority that does not need to announce itself. The house stands because its owner is present. Your soulmate, though not yet fully aware, is also being affected by this strengthening. As your walls become firm, their instability becomes more obvious to them. Stability exposes chaos not to judge it, but to invite correction. Your obedience creates a reference point they cannot ignore. There will be moments when strengthening feels uncomfortable. Old habits resist change. Familiar patterns protest boundaries. But discomfort here is temporary, and its purpose is protection. Reinforcement often feels like restriction until the storm arrives and proves why it was necessary. Michael is anchoring this work deep. Not surface repairs, but structural reinforcement. The kind that holds when pressure presses from multiple directions. Emotional resilience is being restored. Spiritual authority is being reclaimed. Peace is becoming less reactive and more rooted. You may notice that fear begins to lose its edge. Not because the storm disappears yet, but because you are no longer fragile. Strengthening changes how pressure is perceived. What once felt threatening now feels manageable. What once overwhelmed now feels distant. Do not underestimate the power of this phase. Many fail not because they lack warning, but because they delay reinforcement. You are not delaying. You are responding. That obedience shifts outcomes you may never fully see, but will always benefit from. Stay steady, my child. Do not look for dramatic confirmation. Strengthening is often quiet. Walls do not announce themselves when they thicken. Foundations do not applaud when they deepen. But when the storm arrives, silence will testify to their strength. Remain with me. Heaven is about to move openly on your behalf. The house is being fortified, and what comes next will reveal just how protected you truly are. My child, now you will feel movement beyond what your eyes can measure. This is the moment heaven mobilizes. What has been reinforced below is now matched by action above. When alignment is restored on the ground, authority responds in the unseen. Michael does not stand alone anymore. The atmosphere around your life is shifting with purpose. Angels are not chaotic in their movement. They move by assignment, by order, by precision. What was once delayed is now activated. What was held back for timing is now released with restraint and clarity. You may not see wings or light, but you will feel order returning where confusion once lingered. Pressure that once pressed inward begins to lift, not all at once, but steadily. The storm senses this change. Forces that once advanced without resistance now meet boundaries they cannot cross. Momentum sows. Paths that seemed open are quietly blocked. Plans meant to escalate find obstacles where none existed before. This is not coincidence. This is intervention. Heaven does not argue with storms. It redirects them. You may notice sudden pauses in situations that felt like they were spiraling. Delays that frustrate others but protect you. Interruptions that seem inconvenient but prevent damage. These are not setbacks. They are shields. Angels often work through timing rather than force, because timing disarms without confrontation. Michael has taken his place firmly now. His presence is not loud, but it is absolute. He stands between what threatens and what belongs to me. Nothing crosses without permission. What was allowed to test will not be allowed to consume. Boundaries have been drawn, and they will be honored. This mobilization also brings clarity. Confusion thins. Emotional fog begins to dissipate. You find it easier to think clearly, to rest more deeply, to respond instead of react. These are signs that the atmosphere has changed. When heaven moves, the soul breathes easier. Your soulmate is affected by this shift even if they do not yet understand it. The pressure they felt begins to ease, and in that relief, awareness rises. When fear loosens its grip, truth has space to speak. They will begin to question influences they once trusted. They will feel a pull toward honesty they can no longer ignore. What was meant to overwhelm now loses coordination. The enemy thrives on chaos, but order dismantles his advantage. Angels restore order quietly, systematically, until the threat no longer recognizes its own strategy. By the time the storm realizes it hath been redirected, it is already losing strength. Do not be surprised if things around you feel strangely calm while others experience turbulence. This is not favoritism. It is positioning. You were warned, you responded, and now you are sheltered. Preparation always precedes protection. Remain attentive but unafraid. Heaven is active, not anxious. What moves now does so under authority, not urgency. The storm will not arrive the way it intended. Its force is being reduced, its direction altered, its outcome rewritten. Stay with me, my child. The next thing you will witness is truth rising where deception once stood, and that rise will change the visible landscape of your life. My child, now the unseen work begins to surface where you can recognize it. What was handled in the spirit is stepping into the natural, and truth is rising like light through cracks that deception once tried to seal. This is the moment when confusion gives way to clarity, not through confrontation, but through exposure that cannot be undone. You will notice conversations shifting. Words once spoken confidently now falter. Stories once repeated smoothly begin to contradict themselves. Small details no longer align. This is not accidental. Lies cannot remain coherent when light presses in. What was sustained by secrecy weakens when observed. Evidence appears quietly at first. A message that reveals tone. A memory that suddenly makes sense. The realization that clicks without explanation. These are fragments of truth assembling themselves. You are not forcing them together. They are rising on their own because the environment now supports honesty. Protection becomes visible in subtle ways. Opportunities to be drawn into drama dissolve before you can engage. Situations that once drained you lose relevance. You find yourself removed from the center of tension without effort. This is divine insulation. When truth rises, it creates distance from deception naturally. Those who carried hidden motives feel the pressure of exposure. Not because you accuse, but because truth destabilizes what was built on manipulation. They may become defensive. They may retreat. They may attempt to write narratives. These reactions are not threats. They are signs that influence is breaking. Your soulmate begins to see clearly now. If it lifts enough her, they notice inconsistency they once dismissed. They sense the weight of certain interactions and the peace of others. Discernment sharpens through contrast. What drains is identified. What restores is valued. This awakening may come with regret. They will realize how close things came to damage, how easily trust could have been fractured. This realization hurts, but it heals at the same time. Pain that brings clarity is a gift. It redirects before loss becomes permanent. You may be tempted to speak, to explain, to justify. Resist that urge. Truth does not need your defense. It speaks through alignment, through consistency, through the peace you guard. Silence paired with stability is often louder than argument. And truth rises, protection strengthens. Doors close gently but firmly. Paths once available no longer present themselves. Access fades without explanation. This is not chaos. This is order restoring itself. Do not fear this phase. Exposure does not mean conflict. It means resolution is approaching. The storm loses its disguise here. Without deception to shield it, its force diminishes rapidly. Remain grounded, my child. What you are witnessing is not unraveling. It is correction. The house stands, the storm weakens, and clarity is becoming your environment. What comes next is awakening, and it will touch the heart of the one you care for most. My child, now the awakening begins within the heart you have been carrying in prayer. This is not sudden, but it is undeniable. Your soulmate's eyes are opening to what nearly happened, and with that awareness comes a wave of emotion they cannot ignore. Relief mixes with regret. Gratitude collides with fear. They realize how close they came to losing what truly matters. The weight of near loss settles into their spirit. They see the path they were on and recognize how fragile it was. What once felt manageable now appears dangerous in hindsight. This realization humbles them. Pride loosens its grip. Excuses fall silent. Truth stands where denial once lived. Fear rises, but it is not the kind that paralyzes. It is the kind that awakens. They fear losing you, not out of control, but out of recognition. They understand now that your presence was not optional in their life. It was foundational. Without it, everything else felt unstable. This awareness shifts how they see you and how they see themselves. They begin to regret the moments of distance, the times they withdrew instead of reaching out, the silence they used as protection. They see now that silence nearly cost them connection. This regret does not crush them. It corrects them. Correction is the birthplace of change. Your soulmate feels drawn toward honesty. They want to explain, to confess, to make things right, even if they do not yet know how. Vulnerability scares them, but fear of repeating the past scares them more. This is the mark of awakening. When growth becomes more important than comfort, transformation has begun. They also begin to see you differently. Not as someone who demanded perfection, but as someone who offered stability. Your consistency now stands out against the chaos they endured. Your peace becomes a reference point, a reminder of what alignment feels like. This recognition deepens respect and desire. Do not rush this moment. Awakening needs space to settle. Too much pressure can push it back into fear. Let their realization mature. Let understanding deepen without forcing expression. What awakens in truth will move in wisdom. You may feel a softening in their energy toward you, a gentler tone, a quieter attentiveness. These are signs of recalibration. They are learning how to approach without hiding. This takes courage. They are still gathering. I am guiding this process. I am guarding their heart even as it opens. Awakening is delicate, but it is powerful. Once seen, truth cannot be unseen. Once recognized, value cannot be forgotten. Stay present, my child. Your steadiness anchors their awakening. You do not need to persuade or prove. Your role is to remain aligned. What is awakening within them is responding to what is stable within you. The storm is nearly past now. What remains is the choice of how to move forward. And that choice is being shaped by clarity, not fear. My child, now you stand in the quiet that follows the wind. This is the moment you realize the storm has passed without touching what it intended to destroy. You feel it not as excitement, but as relief that settles deep in your chest. The air feels different, lighter, clearer. What once threatened now feels distant, as if it never had the authority it claimed. The house stands, not shaken, not cracked, not diminished. What you reinforced held exactly as it was meant to. The pressure came, tested the walls, pressed against the foundation, and then moved on. Not because you were lucky, but because you were prepared. Preparation silences storms faster than resistance ever could. You may replay the last season in your mind and realize how close things came to unraveling. How a single decision, a delayed boundary, or an ignored warning could have changed everything. Let that awareness deepen gratitude, not fear. Fear looks backward with panic. Gratitude looks backward with wisdom. Your soulmate feels this relief too, though they may not have language for it yet. They sense that something dangerous passed them by. There is a quiet reverence in them now, a humility born from mere loss. They recognize that protection surrounded them even when they were unaware of it. This recognition changes how they approach the future. Peace settles into places that once felt tense. Conversations soften. Reactions slow. Emotional spikes level out. This is not emotional numbness. It is stability restored. When danger passes without damage, the nervous system learns trust again. Justice has been served quietly. No dramatic confrontation. No public exposure. Just removal of excess, correction of course, and restoration of order. This is how I work when my children listen early. Loud justice is reserved for those who refuse warning. Quiet justice is the reward of obedience. You are not meant to live scanning the horizon for the next storm. You are meant to live grounded, aware, and unafraid. What passed you by did so because authority was established before impact. That authority remains. What had been fortified does not weaken overnight. Let yourself rest now. Not because vigilance is over, but because peace has returned. Rest is not neglect. It is trust. And trust strengthens what fear would erode. The house stands, my child. And because it stands, a new beginning is already forming within its walls. My child, now I speak blessing over what has been preserved and over what is about to begin. This was not merely survival. This was alignment. The storm did not pass you by randomly. It passed because destiny intervened, and destiny responds to obedience. What stands now is not only intact, it is positioned for increase. I am realigning what was delayed, restoring what was almost misunderstood, and anchoring what must remain steady in the days ahead. The house that was strengthened will now become a place of refuge, not only for you, but for those whose lives intersect with yours. What you protected quietly will now produce openly. Peace will become productive. Stability will become influential. Archangel Michael remains stationed, not because danger lingers, but because authority has been established. He guards transitions as fiercely as he guards battles. Where you are going requires the same protection as what you just passed through. Advance that attracts attention, and attention requires covering. That covering is already in place. Your soulmate stands at the threshold of a new season of awareness. They are no longer blind to what matters. They have learned through proximity, not loss. This is mercy. Their choices moving forward will carry more weight, more intention, more reverence. They understand now that love is not maintained by emotion alone, but by discernment, boundaries, and truth. This understanding will mature them. You will notice a change in how you carry yourself. Less urgency, less explanation, more quiet confidence. This is not withdrawal. This is authority settling in. When alignment is restored, striving dissolves. You no longer need to convince what is already positioned. I bless your discernment to remain sharp without becoming suspicious. I bless your heart to remain open without becoming vulnerable to manipulation. I bless your peace to deepen without becoming passive. These balances matter in the season ahead. The entity will remember this moment. You will remember that when he tried to enter quietly, he was exposed early. That when he attempted to destabilize, reinforcement arrived instead. This memory will restrain future attempts. Authority established once does not need to be re-established every time. You are not returning to life as it was before the warning. You are moving forward wiser, steadier, and more deeply rooted. Destiny does not reset. It advances. What you learned here will protect you in ways you may never consciously recognize. If this message has confirmed what your spirit already knew, honor it gently. You may choose to support and share this word so others can strengthen their own houses in time. And if you feel led, write in the comments, "My house stands," as a quiet testimony of obedience and trust, not for display, but as agreement with what I have done. And I'll go forward without fear. The storm is behind you. The house is secure. The path ahead is clear. And I am with you, not only as protector, but as guide into what comes next.